Hey, my name is Richie Humphrey. I was born in Hollywood, California, and I grew up in the Los Angeles area. In 2009, I came to Vietnam for 1 week, looking for a good bowl of pho. And you know what? I never left. Vietnamese language is beautiful, and I've been studying it ever since I moved here. Last year, my girlfriend Mimi and I were on the amazing Race Vietnam. It's just like the American version, except we raced around Vietnam, and of course, the show was in Vietnamese. I was a columnist for TOI News. My columnist was called Richie Heart Vietnam. I wrote in both English and Vietnamese about everything I love about Vietnam and my life here. It's pretty easy for me to do since there are so many things like the street culture, the food, riding around town on my motorbike, and of course, the many incredible people I've met and the good friends I've made here.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Talk Vietnam. Our guest today is Richie Humphrey. He's from the United States. In 2009, he had planned a trip to Southeast Asia, and his first stop was in Ho Chi Minh City. And he said upon coming here, he had a strong feeling of warmth. He'd been to around 20 countries, but he's never had this feeling before. It feels like home, basically. And Richie is here in our edition of Talk Vietnam today to share more about his story and how Vietnam has become very close to his heart. Hello, Richie.
How are you?
Yes, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Wonderful. Tell us what brought you to Vietnam in 2009.
Well, originally I came here with 3 friends. It was just supposed to be a 3-week tour, kind of like Gilligan's Island, and I ended up staying. First stop was Vietnam, and as you said, yeah, I got here and I was first of all blown away. The energy, the traffic, the food, but there's something about it that just stuck with me, and even when we continued around other countries that trip, I kept thinking about it, and in the end I decided to move here.
So after, you continued on with the trip, but you came back to Vietnam after 3 weeks, basically.
That's right.
Yes,
right.
You said it felt like home. I mean, why so? What, particularly kind of impressed you?
It didn't feel like home in the sense that it felt like America. It felt like home in the sense I felt like
you belonged
here. I belonged, I felt comfortable. Yeah, the feeling one gets when one goes home, that feeling of warmth when you think of home, and that's how I initially responded to Vietnam, and I'll have to say it's only increased since then.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And before that, before 2009, before this, life-changing trip, you may call it, what did you do in the United States?
Well, originally I worked in accounting. I graduated with a degree in accounting, and from there I moved into finance. I worked for a couple investment banks around Wall Street. After a few years, I decided that I didn't want to work for the corporations anymore. I started to trade securities, mostly stocks, on my own account. I was a day trader, you might call me. And I did that for a long time. I did that for almost 10 years.
Wow, yeah. 10 years. And then, what made you just make that, trip? It was just a vacation and you didn't think anything of it.
Yeah. Originally, it was just supposed to be 3 weeks. I remember telling my friend I wanted to go to Vietnam to get a good bowl of pho.
So you had pho before. Yeah. Wonderful. What do you do now?
So, the first couple of years I was a full-time student living on savings, and then I ran out of money. So since then I've just been hustling. I've been doing a lot of freelance writing. Writing's really a passion of mine, and anything I can do. I was a model for a Vietnam Airlines ad campaign. Did a couple small parts in commercials. Anything, yeah.
Now, I believe you're also a columnist for one of the local newspapers.
That's right,
Tell us
that's
about
right.
this experience.
So it's TOI News, and the name of the column is Richie Heart Vietnam, Richie Heart Vien. And I write in both Vietnamese and English, and it's a lifestyle column, nothing too heavy. I write a lot of experiences from my life, observations, and it all kind of fits under the theme of Richie Heart Vien. They want me to write about what I love about Vietnam, and that's really easy for me because I do love Vietnam and I love living here, and it's kind of a natural fit.
As the managing director at the TOI News editorial department, Nguyễn Thanh Liêm has worked with Richie since the beginning, so he knows Richie well.
Tôi nghĩ Richie là một người thực sự yêu Việt Nam, đặc biệt là anh còn yêu các món ăn Việt Nam. Có lần đi ăn thì hỏi anh Richie, anh mới qua đây thì anh có ăn mắm tôm được không? Anh bảo Richie rất thích ăn mắm tôm. Đấy, thì đối với người Việt mình thì những người nước ngoài mà nói là đã yêu mắm tôm, thích ăn được mắm tôm, rồi có thể nói là phải cố gắng để ăn mắm tôm, thì tôi nghĩ đó là một cái tình yêu nó là rất lớn.
After a few meetings, veteran editor Liam discovered in Richie a charm that attracts readers, especially young readers.
Anh Richie này có cái góc nhìn rất lạ về cuộc sống ở Việt Nam. Ảnh trong các bài viết của ảnh nó luôn thể hiện sự dí dỏm, sự hài hước. Đọc bài ảnh hiểu được, thấy những cái điểm thú vị từ văn hóa Việt Nam mà lại hiểu thêm được văn hóa ở bên Mỹ. Ví dụ là ảnh viết về đám cưới Việt, đám cưới Mỹ, thì ảnh có cái so sánh, ví dụ về chuyện tặng quà như thế nào, rồi cái phiền toái hay không khi đi dự một cái đám cưới ở Việt Nam hoặc cái đám cưới ở Mỹ. Mình nghĩ là cả bạn đọc họ cũng thấy thú vị vì điều đó, vì anh Richie là một người dù còn trẻ nhưng mà cũng có một cái vốn sống rất là tốt.
Richie is supposed to submit one piece of writing per week, but normally he releases more. Liam revealed that it was Richie's wish to write in Vietnamese, even though it would be harder than writing in English. The editorial board decides to publish his Vietnamese pieces and edit them only slightly, so that the uniqueness of his writings can shine through.
Let's talk more a little bit about this job, being a columnist with TOI online. It's TOI News, actually, hosting the column Richie Loves Vietnam. You know, within these writings, I'm a little curious about, obviously your perspective of the Vietnamese life and Vietnamese society here is going to be different from the way, normal Vietnamese see the world they live in. What makes it so different from other foreigners who, say, write about Vietnam or who live here?
Well, I'm here by choice. I choose to be here, and I'm here because, of many things that I love about Vietnam. So I think that, a lot of the feedback I've gotten on some of the pieces I've written have been something along the lines of, you made me appreciate my country, Vietnam, by what you wrote about, For example, I really like to go hang out with friends, go nhậu, like go drinking on the street, eating, that kind of a thing. I don't do a lot of that back in the U.S., either in LA or New York, so that is a basic thing that I really love about Vietnam, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. And maybe if there's someone who is working hard, coming home at the end of the day, and kind of feeling like they're in a rut, and I like to point out certain things that actually are pretty cool about even what might seem routine or mundane.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, sometimes when you're so used to a certain life, you take it for granted, in a sense, and you're trying to point out, what seemed maybe normal to Vietnamese people, but can have a special light to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. I understand with the piece that you said, one of your favorite, the Saigon rush hour.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of people come to Vietnam, and the first thing that hits them is the traffic. And it's like a topic that's, probably very much written about, but I've heard that your piece has received a lot of, commentaries about how it's very different. Can you share with us, how is it different, from, say, someone who just came here and their perspective?
I just describe a routine trip of kind of driving and picking up Mimi and going to a wedding. It's all kind of part of the life here in Vietnam, and I think also I point out a lot of things that maybe people already know, but maybe they've never seen it in writing. Like, everybody knows that when you're driving, you gotta watch out for the traffic, you gotta keep your eye on the road for potholes, for hanging wires, and every now and then a cute girl drives by in a Vespa, and you gotta account for that as well. You gotta take all things into consideration,
Yes. Right. Wow. You have a good sense of humor, don't you? What inspires you the most in writing?
Right. I think there's two things. It's a little different when I write in Vietnamese and when I write in English. When I write in Vietnamese, my goal is primarily to entertain, show my personality. My Vietnamese isn't perfect, but that's kind of part of my personality. So it's really primarily to entertain. In English, I am really passionate about it. I really try to craft the words, make them as beautiful as possible, and what my goal is to share with people living outside of Vietnam what I see, what I love about Vietnam. So in the end, I guess my inspiration is all of the things that I love and the reasons that I'm here.
Could you elaborate more on that thought about, you know, Vietnam being your inspiration for writing?
Well, okay. For example, in the U.S., we have many conveniences, you know. We've got drive-thrus. You can go to McDonald's and within 5 minutes you can have your whole lunch, you know. Whereas maybe here I'd have to get on my bike and go down and meet some friends and then wait for her to cook it up, and then it comes and then I eat it and then, you know, I leave. So maybe it takes me an hour to have lunch here, whereas it could be done in 5 or 10 minutes in the U.S. But I feel like in the U.S., if I save all this extra time with all the conveniences, what do I end up doing? I usually end up just sitting on the couch watching TV for those extra 45 minutes that I saved. So not really doing anything. There's a lot more emphasis on the journey, if you will, you know, the living in the moment, as opposed to just, okay, I need food, let me get it immediately.
It's the experience, basically, and that experience sets, you know, that experience provides you with the inspiration and the words to kind of make your writings.
It's fun, you know, like you can go to Target, was one of my favorite stores in the U.S., like Walmart, you know, they're all the same. And in 30 minutes, you can get so much stuff there. It would take you probably a week of driving around Saigon, and even at the end of that week, you probably wouldn't find everything, you know, because for your towels, you'd have to go down to Towel Street, and then you have to go each one and make sure you get the right towel at the best price, and, you know, oh, what's next? Okay, I got to go get some milk products. Well, there's Milk Product Street, right? So, but along the way, it's kind of like a little journey, you know. It's fun, it's exciting, you know. I mean, that's in a nutshell kind of what I feel about my life here.
This passion for writing, was it kind of newly found when you came to Vietnam with all of the things that were happening around you, or had you always had, like, you know, a love for writing?
I've always loved writing. I've always been a writer since I was a kid. I wrote for my my college paper, my graduate school paper. I had a blog for a couple of years in New York. Actually, a couple of times some of my articles were picked up by some of the big blogs. And another thing that's kind of a hobby of mine as well is poetry. I've always really been a fan of reading and writing poetry.
Yes, and we'll get to that in a bit, but we're going to take a look at a clip first. So Richie is now well known amongst the youths here in Ho Chi Minh City in particular, and Vietnam in general, as a blogger and also a columnist with a very witty character. But he's also known for holding another role as well. So let's take a look at what that can be.
Bước chậm thôi, nó đang đứng trước mặt mày đó. 1 bước, 2 bước. Rồi chụp tới Bình. Ê, Bình tay trái mày nè Bình. Rồi, quẹo qua tay trái, từ từ Bình. 50 Bình. Vô. Con đây rồi. Hai chị em đi Bình đâu rồi. Nhảy đi. Trâm đi bé, 12 giờ. Bên tay trái, no, Trâm lấy tay trái. Ê, vòng lại. Ê, no. Bạn mới.
Richie đã làm chân của con nghe con đó bị gãy, làm Richie cảm thấy rất buồn, rất buồn, không muốn làm con nghe con đau. Chị ăn đi.
Now, you are a contestant, as we can see in the previous clip on Amazing Race, Vietnam 2012. It seems to be a wonderful experience that you've had here in Vietnam. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was amazing. You asked if it was the most wonderful experience in Vietnam. I mean, it may have been one of the most wonderful experiences of my whole life, to be honest with you. First of all, I was a huge fan of the show back in the U.S. since the first season. To have this opportunity to be on The Amazing Race, a dream of mine, and be on it in Vietnam, speaking Vietnamese, yeah, it blew me away. It was amazing. It was a lot of fun and saw some beautiful places. It was cool.
Amazing. How did you feel when you found out? I mean, obviously you have to go through an application process to be on this show. How did you feel when you knew that you were accepted into the program?
It was all so fast, Young. Like, we didn't find out about it until a couple days before the deadline. I think the deadline was a Friday, so found out about it maybe Thursday, scrambled to get the application together, and then we turned it in Friday, got a call, come in the next day, Saturday, we met with Dustin. Actually, there's a funny story about that.
I want to hear this funny story.
You know, I'm a student of Vietnamese language, and I use many different methods to study Vietnamese. I watch Vietnamese TV, I speak Vietnamese with friends, I watch a lot of Vietnamese movies. And to help me with pronunciation, one of the things I do is I'll take a scene from a movie that I like and I'll just try to imitate it, reenact it over and over. And there was one scene, there's a movie, it's quite famous movie called De Mai Tân.
De Mai Tân, yes.
And in that movie is my favorite comedic actor, Tai Hua. I had practiced a scene from that movie, and it was basically Tai Hua who plays this super funny, flamboyantly gay character. And there's a scene with him just kind of going off on Dustin because he didn't like the clothes that he was wearing. And it's really funny. He talks really fast and really sarcastically. And so I had practiced that scene thousands of times, honestly, thousands of times. I had worked hours on it trying to get my pronunciation right. And so on the day of the interview with Dustin, Mimi and I kind of planned this out in advance. I told them the whole story about how I practiced these scenes. And then Mimi's like, do the scene, do the scene. I'm like, no, I'm shy, I'm embarrassed. She's like, come on, come on. I'm like, okay. So yeah, I did the scene, and I guess it was good enough because we got the call a few days
You got to do this for us, please.
You want me to do it? Okay.
Imagine I'm Dustin.
All right, so he first calls Dustin, and then Dustin comes in and he talks to him. And he's kind of holding like some kind of chocolate, okay? Dũng, trời ơi, bột bóng hay sao? Thay đồ lộ quá vậy Dũng. Trời ơi, Dũng bận đồ đẹp vậy, sao Hồi dám đi kế Dũng đấy trời. Bận đồ đẹp vừa phải thôi, chừa chỗ cho người ta đẹp chứ chứ. Giờ sao đây ta?
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I did from.
Wow, you know, you should consider becoming an actor. a comedic actor, you know, with your sense of humor, as we've seen from the beginning to end, but awesome.
Ai muốn kiểm tra lòng kiên nhẫn.
Kiên nhẫn.
What's that?
Kiên nhẫn.
Patient?
Dạ.
Nói về kiên nhẫn thì chắc chắn là không phải Richie. Richie không phải là người kiên nhẫn.
Wow, it's good.
Chú Tiểu mở ra có bao nhiêu bậc thang, trời ơi, ngỡ ngàng xỉu luôn. Trời ơi, sốc dễ sợ, nghĩ sao rồi?
Patient, babe. Remember, I said be patient.
Thực sự thì cái thử thách đó cũng không khó gì hết.
Hai trăm 14 bậc.
Em giỏi dữ vậy.
Cảm ơn con. Đích đến đền Thái Vi, Ninh Bình. Hãy tìm đường đến đó. Trên đường trở về, người cứu hộ sẽ tèo thuyền cho bạn. Hãy tuân thủ hướng dẫn an toàn của người này.
Slow down.
We go down so easy. Please keep going.
I want you to sit down and take a deep breath.
I don't want to switching camera like this.
Okay, then just calm down. You don't have to be. This is for fun. We're like trying.
Okay, please keeping. Please.
Nếu Mimi thức thì Richie phải kiên nhẫn. Cuộc đua này rất tốt cho Richie và Mimi.
Giúp em và Richie hiểu nhau hơn.
Đúng rồi.
Let's go back to the amazing race. What was the toughest moment in the race that, you know, you and your girlfriend Mimi joined in? What was that moment like?
Yeah. There's a lot of tough moments. The Amazing Race Vietnam is much more physically intense than the American version, or at least from what I can tell. So, you know, I was in pretty good shape going into the race, but Mimi, she's never exercised a day in her life. The first day I was super hard on her, very physical. We were constantly running around, didn't get enough water, and initially she kind of collapsed at one point. It was like she kind of fell down. She was out of breath. Got back up, and then maybe 20 meters from the finish line, as we were racing in, she collapsed again. And you know, I picked her up, and I'm running in, and I'm thinking like, oh, I wonder what music they're going to play when they show this, because I look so cool carrying her, you know. And I put her on the mat, she kind of stationed, and we stopped. Dustin tells us that we didn't lose, we came in 8th place, and all of a sudden Mimi's legs buckle, and she just falls, and I kind of catch her like this, and it was scary. She got worse, she had trouble breathing, and then her eyes like rolled up the back of her head, and we got rushed to the emergency room, and I mean, it was just tough to see, you know, the person that you really care about in this condition. I was trying to talk to her, she wouldn't respond, and you know, she was passed out for almost 2 hours, and during that time I was like, what did I, you know, she didn't know about the Amazing Race. I was the one that kind of said, oh, we should do this, it's going to be fun, right? Fun. Now she's in the hospital. So I felt guilty, I was questioning what I did, you know. Yeah, it was a very difficult time, and even after that, for maybe 24 hours, I was convinced we were going to quit. You know, I told all the producers, like, we're done, it's too much for Mimi. But Mimi was feeling pretty good the next day, and she really wanted to keep racing, and you know, we talked to all the producers, and in the end we decided, you know, we'll race on. But I think something changed in us after that, you know, like, at least for me, I wasn't as stressed out anymore. I didn't feel like winning was the ultimate priority anymore, you know, like, and from that point on, I think we just had a lot of fun, you know, so it didn't matter what happened, and so we were able to enjoy it so much more.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
So in some ways it was a terrible thing that happened, but in some ways I think it was kind of the best thing that happened.
Yeah, exactly. What is the most, wonderful things that you learned about Vietnam, its land and people through this whole experience when obviously you traveled through different places?
Yeah. Well, the show, the contestants were all Vietnamese, so it was 10 teams of 2, so it was 19 Vietnamese and me. And I'm telling you, it was physically tough. And not, Mimi, we talked about, but nobody gave up, There was other girls on the show as well that had never worked out a day in their life, and nobody gave up. And it was really, I think, it was really a symbol of strength, I think it made me have a lot more respect for Vietnamese people, the way that every single one pushed on, never gave up, even under the hardest circumstances. So I definitely walked away with that. And I also saw some really beautiful places around Vietnam, just amazing, like things you see in a book or maybe on a postcard, but it's real, like it's actually
Where were you guys?
One of my favorite parts was this lake called YEU Lake. Yeah. That was just so amazing to be out there on that lake. Kind of had these little like limestone outcroppings like Halong Bay, and there was Buddhist temples, and we climbed to the top of Buddhist temple, and there was a little child monk up there who was very cute, and a lot of beautiful scenery. The scenery when we were on the bicycles at the beginning on our little date before it turned into a nightmare, that was amazing, It was, water buffaloes and rice paddies and the mountains in the background. It was stunning.
Yes, wonderful.
Trước đây Richie đã sống ở Hà Nội và rất thích món ăn Hà Nội. Và sau khi Richie chuyển vào Sài Gòn sống thì Richie cảm thấy hồi buồn vì rất nhớ món ăn Hà Nội. Nhưng sau đó Richie tìm ra ốc ở Sài Gòn rất ngon. Rồi thì dạo này chắc tới đây ít nhất một lần một tuần. Richie bị nghiện ốc rồi, không có ốc không sống được.
A lot of foreigners who come here, what would you say to someone who came here and is, quite hesitant to eat street food? I mean, just in terms of, caring about the health and the cleanliness of it maybe.
Right.
But you've considered street food to be a big part of your life here.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you say to someone like that?
Well, first of all, like, the most delicious food is on the street, and it's really fresh, every morning the vendors go to the market and get fresh ingredients, vegetables, meat, and you got to go to the right one. If you go to the popular one, then it's going to have a good turnover because there's going to be lots of customers, so they're going to constantly getting new stuff in. If you go to somewhere where it's not as popular, then you probably won't get as fresh or as good a quality.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of your favorite street foods? Let's start with Hanoi.
Hanoi, bún nâu, mắm tôm, bún chả.
Bún chả, yes, the grilled pork with the vermicelli.
Yeah. And actually, they're very different, pho Saigon and pho Hanoi. But I prefer pho Hanoi.
Pho Hanoi.
I like both, but if I had to choose one, I would choose pho Hanoi.
Yes. How about in Ho Chi Minh City? Tell us some of your
I'm addicted
dish.
to ốc.
Escargots.
Yeah. Well, I like to tell my friends it's fish, because if you say
Shellfish.
snails, people get a little weird. But I mean, honestly, when you go eat out, you're not only eating snails.
You
so
get
you're eating a lot
like
of
clams
stuff.
and your other shellfish.
Just call it shellfish.
Yes.
So I eat out at least once a week, maybe twice a week sometimes.
Twice a week.
What else do I love? Bún thập nướng, vermicelli with grilled meat and some vegetables. Cơm tấm, broken rice.
Broken rice, yes.
Bún mắm, it's kind of like vermicelli with that fermented
fish sauce.
Yeah, fish sauce. Lots of stuff.
You tried a lot of things, basically. You're up for anything, and obviously through your traveling, you've eaten food in different regions of Vietnam as well. Now I have a quote from you, and you wrote, "I love the street culture of Saigon more than the strip mall culture of the suburban American."
Right.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, that same kind of energy that I felt when I first came to Saigon, I think it's on the street, and so when you leave your house and get on your motorbike, you feel it, you're caught up in it, and then go to eat lunch at maybe a Bún thập nướng place, and you park your bike and you're eating right there. You're still kind of feeling that energy from the street, and along the way home maybe you have to pick something up. Today I had to make copies. Well, I just stayed on my bike and handed the guy my USB key, and he went in, made the copies, gave it back, I paid him, and I'm on my way. Whereas in suburban U.S., it's different in New York, but in suburban U.S. where I grew up, you're constantly in a box. You're in your house, which is a box, and then you get into your car, which is in another box, and then you go and either go into some sort of store, maybe Walmart, or your office, and so it's different. It's much different,
Everything's so far away from each other, and there's not that sense of close community, basically. Now, to help our audience understand more about Richie's life here in Ho Chi Minh City, we visited the place he calls home, his apartment here in the southern metropolis. So let's have a look.
Only think in Vietnamese. Richie put up this sign at the most visible spot in his 40 square meter rented apartment in Binh Thanh district. 4 PC monitors, a remnant of a time when Richie was a securities trader. Now, learning Vietnamese is Richie's top priority. Listening to Vietnamese and writing in Vietnamese are how he studies the tonal language by himself. Richie enriches his vocabulary by transcribing the lyrics of his favorite Vietnamese songs. Word by word, day by day, steadily, Richie has become confident of his command of Vietnamese. He started a column on TOI News where he expresses his personal feelings about Vietnam.
I think this is a great time in history to be in Vietnam. I think it's a really exciting time to be in Vietnam right now. It's developing rapidly, but there's still a lot of the old mixed in with a lot of the new, and it's a really fun time. I really have fun. My life is really fun here. I think right now Vietnam's at that sweet point of fun but also safe.
There is a reason why Richie spends hours replying to readers' comments in Vietnamese. It is the thing that he looks forward to the most every day.
I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback, and the kind of comments that I like to hear. One of the comments in particular, I remember said something along the lines of, it was from a Vietnamese reader, and he said that he gets caught up in his busy work life, and maybe sometimes he forgets about some of the simple things that make Vietnam so great. So I really love to hear that, that's one of the things that really motivates me in my writing.
We can see that, we've seen it before in the previous part of your acting skills in Vietnamese, so we know how good your Vietnamese is, and as I promised, there's going to be a little test of your Vietnamese skills. So, anh đã bắt đầu học tiếng Việt như thế nào ạ?
Bắt đầu khi anh chuyển sang Việt Nam sống thì đi học ở trường Đại học Quốc gia Hà Nội.
Đại học Quốc gia Hà Nội, dạ. Vâng. Thời gian đó học thì anh có thấy có tác dụng không?
Rất khó, nhưng lúc đó thì anh rất là lười, chỉ đi lớp thôi, không học ở nhà, không nói tiếng Việt, thì bạn chỉ đi lớp thôi. Nhưng sau khi anh chuyển vào Sài Gòn sống thì anh cố gắng nói chuyện bạn rất nhiều và xem TV Việt Nam và phim Việt Nam và như vậy. Sau đó anh học rất là nhàn hơn trước ở Hà Nội mà.
Và đúng là không phải học theo lý thuyết mà là học từ bạn bè đúng không ạ? Oh, wonderful. Awesome Vietnamese skills. So, would you have any kind of advice for anyone out there who's, in the path of, taking their first steps in learning basic Vietnamese?
I think the best and the fastest way is what they call full immersion. So basically, when I wake up in the morning, I turn on Vietnamese television. I try to only speak Vietnamese throughout the day, only email in Vietnamese. My Facebook updates are in Vietnamese often, my comments are in Vietnamese. It's all part of my practice. But aside from that, just, constantly inundating myself with Vietnamese. I got a little sign in my room that says, nghĩ bằng tiếng Việt thôi. That means only think in Vietnamese. Yeah.
Yes, awesome. How about advices for people who have just arrived in the city and might be, thinking, I'm quite new here, I don't know what to do, or, what would be your advice to them?
Get a motorbike and start driving it everywhere. And if you're visiting here, then I think you should have every meal on the street if you're just here for a visit. And, for that matter, I mean, if you're living here, I would recommend street food as well.
Besides street food, what else shouldn't they miss out?
It really, there's something for everyone here. That's kind of the nice thing about Vietnam. There's all sorts of outdoor activities, hiking, there's beautiful beaches, beautiful mountains, and there's nightlife. I mean, there's a lot of nightlife in Saigon, so there's something for everyone.
Exactly. Now, throughout your 2 to 3 years here, have you ever gone through any point where you experienced culture shock?
Well, for the most part, no. For the most part, most of the Vietnamese culture really kind of fits with me, and it feels natural. But there's one thing. I think it's kind of like a matter of personal space, I guess you'd call it. And Vietnamese people are a little more touchy, and I don't really mind that so much. Like if someone's trying to get by me and they tap me on the back, okay, yeah, I'll let you by. Whereas I think in the U.S., if you touch someone just to get by, they get really angry, So I don't mind that. But there is one thing when men friends in a completely friendly way touch each other that kind of freaks me out sometimes. Like, for example, it wouldn't be uncommon for a Vietnamese male to put his hand on the inside of the leg of his other Vietnamese friend. And it doesn't mean, it's not a big deal, but if a man puts his hand on the inside of my leg, it makes me really uncomfortable. And
if you do that,
I was like, get off.
If you do that in the States, they will get,
right.
very shocked.
I've been trying to, like, get myself more used to that. Like, I made a goal that I'm going to try to, like, hold hands with my male friends when I cross the street from time to time, just to, like, get comfortable with it. And so I tried that once with my buddy, and then by the time I got like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, so there are some things, you don't have to completely compromise. When you're here, you can still be yourself. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of Vietnamese guys out there who just prefer touching. Yep. Do you keep in contact a lot with your family? What do they think about the fact that you're living here and, decided to kind of settle here?
They're happy for me. They're happy that I'm happy. My mom and dad visited me here and
they came
took them around, and they had a great time. They loved it here.
Overall, what do you say, what do you think do you like the most about living here in Ho Chi Minh City?
I think if I were to pick one thing, it would just be maybe a sense of freedom. Yeah.
How so?
It's just very freeing to get on the bike and go wherever you want, and have access to amazing, delicious food. There's a lot of little things like that, I'd say.
Now, I understand you mentioned earlier when we talked about writing that you also are very much into poetry.
Yeah.
As we've seen, you know, you've got your, Vietnam as a big inspiration in that. Could you share with us some of your poetry?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that. I brought something. It's all kind of work in process stuff, but I have a couple of things here. This is a sonnet that I'm working on. It's about the clouds.
Yes.
A face with eyes keeps growing wide. Wind morphs a rice hat, now a bird of prey with wings. What's that? A bearded tiger to the north? I watch the sky, TV show many things. Thick clouds that ooze in like black lava flow. The sky is dark. A flash of light, boom, bombs exploding. People seek shelter below. Come sao, it's not the first storm in Vietnam. It seems to rain for 20 years like tears, a hard, cruel rain that makes you question life. But in the end, the sun appears, quash fears. Clouds part and yellow gold coins fill the sky. A shiny plane goes by, pointy clouds shaped like buildings mirroring the cityscape.
Wow, beautiful. And it's still in the process of work too.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. How has Vietnam become an inspiration in your work, of poetry?
I worked on Wall Street. I worked as a trader, and those jobs pay well. And right now, I'm probably the poorest I've ever been as an adult, but I'm happiest I've ever been, And so that happiness is my inspiration for poetry, for writing, and I would